Hey, good morning, class. How's it going? We're diving into week three. Really excited about this week's topic. We're talking about power and influence. And really, when you think about it, how much is a leader really supposed to have? Is having too much power, will that hurt the organization or hurt the people around that leader? Or what type of power should a leader have? In our text this week, we are covering five different uh, powers that we're going to discuss and look over. And I want to point out in this video for you guys to kind of, if I had to summarize this week's chapter, I want to highlight a few topics. So, when it comes to our discussion question, all leaders need some degree of power to be effective, but more power is not always better. After reading the chapter, I feel like you guys will be able to really, really effectively answer this question right away by diving into it. You might really not know all the facts going into it, so definitely look over the chapter. But how much power should leaders actually have is the question here. One thing that you have to do is look on page 146, and it talks about power just in general, which it says power is usually used to describe the absolute capacity of an individual agent to influence the behavior or attitude of one or more designated target persons at a given point in time. Okay, so power is used um, to pretty much get something done or tell somebody what needs to happen. On top of that, there's the definition of authority, which a leader's authority usually includes the right to make particular types of decisions for the organization. So power and authority sometimes seems like it goes hand in hand, but authority usually gives the right for the person, that leader, to make some big decisions for the organization. When we look at the different kinds of power, it's broken down in page 148 by French and Raven. They do a great job by breaking it down to five: reward power, cohesive power, legitimate power, expert power, and referent power. Okay, so the key here is to really break down these five categories of power and then ask yourself as a leader, where do you fall into these five categories? Does a leader need to be particularly one power, or can they be a mixture of all these powers, and is that the best way? A couple powers that I definitely want to, look at and cover, I would say, would definitely be the referent power. Referent power is usually greater for someone who is friendly, attractive, charming, and trustworthy. Some specific ways to acquire and maintain referent power, you know, basically are summarized in page 154 of our text. Basically, this person shows acceptance and positive regard, acts supportive and helpful, uses sincere forms of integration, defend and back up people when appropriate, make self-sacrifices to show concerns, and they keep promises. I think one thing we have to look at here is uh, be the leader others want to follow. When you look at the referent power person, this leader is someone that people really, really want to follow. They really feel like this leader cares for them and their well-being, and then because of that, that gives the leader power when it comes down to finishing and accomplishing a task at hand. Now, this type of power can backfire on an individual just because if the person's fake and they're just trying to say the right things and win people over, eventually it will catch up to them. So this type of person that has this type of power, it really comes down to their overall character and integrity day after day. So basically, actions speak louder than words. So you can't be a fake person with this, because eventually you're gonna be exposed and people are going to see that you are just really trying to win them over and not really being sincere, and your character is not showing that you really care for them. When we talk about this type of power, it really makes me think again, once again, coaching and great teams. You think about great organizations as well in the business world, and the top leaders. You always hear from their employees, that their staff, that their leader is very caring and outgoing and very helpful, and there to support them and build them up. And because of that, they're very productive. So I definitely think that's a direction that people should go. But once again, it falls in your character and integrity if you can fall into that category. There's another power that's called the expert power, which basically states that you have power because you're an expert in the field. Now, this is great, especially when the organization depends on your knowledge. So the more you know and the more the organization needs from you to survive, to run, then this is great. But at the end of the day, this could backfire as well, because you might be an expert in the field, but then if you're supposed to teach others and you're not that good or not that good of a people person, then it falls off. So I definitely think there has to be a mix for some of these powers in a leader. The reverent power and the expert power. If you get a good mix, then you start looking at a very, very successful leader and people that want to really follow that person because A, they know what they're talking about, and B, because they actually care, and their character and integrity shows that they care for others as well. So that's going to be key. I think about, how much power should a leader have. I think that's totally dependent on the staff. I just think, sometimes leaders get too caught up and it's all about them, and they're not worried about building others up. And then that's when an organization suffers. If the leader is keeping a clear head and really thinking about, I want to build people up, I want to build this organization up, I want to be successful in what we do and find out what we do and do it well, then things are going to work out in that organization's favor. But when leaders are making the organization about them and not about everybody else, then that's where you're going to see those problems. So, looking forward to this week and seeing your guys' discussion questions. I will be getting those grades up to date throughout this week. Definitely make sure that you guys are using our textbook when referencing and using pages when referencing it in our discussions and your guys' homework. And let's have a good week. How much power should leaders have? That's the question.